I'm Dave Roseberry, and I'm the Executive Director of LeaderWorks, and I'm with my good friend R.D. Glenn. We've known each other for 8-10 years or so, a long time. Yeah. We've done some projects in the Anglican Church in North America, but that's the U.S. side, and I'm up here in Burlington, Ontario with you.
And just to make you feel welcome, I ordered some snow.
Yeah, I mean, it snowed yesterday, and this is the last day of March, and it was snowing yesterday. And RD has done an amazing job taking this church, which is 10 years old. He'll tell us a story, but he brought it out and into this Anglican annex here in Canada, and he's in his own facility now. He built a facility, but I know it wasn't easy, and the mechanics of those things, I'm sure people could call you and talk to you how you raise money and how you went through the process. Right. But what's interesting to me is the conversation we were having yesterday about the culture, because it's not just the liturgy, it's not just opening the doors and people showing up. There's a culture that has to be built in a new church. What's the point you were trying to make to me yesterday?
Well, and in some ways, David, that is the point, because building the church is actually more difficult than building the building.
The building, yeah.
The building is, it's just bricks and mortar, it's raising money, it's rezoning and all that stuff. But to try to build a church culture is the really important work. We began probably about a decade ago. It's actually a 160-year-old congregation. We left our former diocese about 10 years ago.
Right.
And we started in this process of saying, who's God calling us to be? Who is St. George's? How do we reach our community? We actually found our culture and our identity in our Anglican heritage, but in a slightly different way than some people might guess.
Yeah, say more about that, because a lot of people are saying Anglicanism right now is going higher. Right. It's a little bit more ceremonial. Right. But you found something else.
So what we said, we said that we are Christians, and so our identity is initially found in the scriptures. Yeah. But then secondly, we are Anglican Christians, and so that's a particular type of Christian. We began with the question, what were the most important points of the English Reformation?
Right.
What were those principles? What were the things? And we came to see that those most important issues were not the peripheral matters, like liturgical colors and vestments and sort of those things that people think of when they initially think of Anglicanism. Those were peripheral, they weren't at the core, because no one gives their life for the right liturgical color.
Right, right.
And so the English Reformation had to be about something that was far more important. And we began to plumb the documents, in particular the 39 articles. And we, through Article 18 and Article 34 and a few others, we became convinced that the English Reformation was all about getting the gospel in the language of the people, in word and sacrament.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Gospel in word and sacrament, but in the language of the people. Pull that apart.
Okay, so I'll begin in the articles just to get some cred here with our Anglican brothers and sisters. Article 18 and 19 talk about what is the church, and it says that the church, the visible church, is the congregation of faithful men, people, gathered around the preaching of the pure word of God and the sacraments rightly and duly administered. So when Cranmer was thinking about what makes an Anglican church, what makes a visible church, it has to have the pure word of God preached and the two sacraments rightly and duly administered. So gospel, word, and sacrament. Article 34 speaks of the traditions of the church, and it says, in my paraphrase, the traditions of the church have not always been one and the same, but have to be locally adapted.
Okay.
And so it's not only the gospel in word and sacrament, it's the gospel in word and sacrament in a way that connects with the average person in your area.
In their language.
In their language. But language means so much more than just doing it in English.
Right.
It means translating everything so that it hits those existential needs and rubs of the average person. Anglicanism, at its best, in our estimation, is a popular religion. It's the gospel for the people, for the average person. And so we then said, well, if those things are true, what would that look like in our context here in Burlington? Mm-hmm. And we visited everything from the use of a liturgical calendar to music style to what does our liturgical backbone look like in our worship services. and how do we preach, you know? So we revisited the whole thing and began to shape a culture around what would Thomas Cranmer do today.
Okay. If you were Canadian.
If you were a Canadian in Burlington today, what would it look like?
Okay. So somebody's going to come here on Sunday morning and they're going to hear a constant note, a theme that's played throughout. First, the dominant note is going to be found in the text, in the pulpit. And then the music is going to add. And then however the liturgy is shaped.
Yeah. Otherwise, we found what was happening without that was there were all these disparate thoughts.
Right.
You know, there were about 4 or 5 different ideas or themes, and people would walk away not really clear what they were supposed to take away. Building the theme out from the text and having a consistent look over weeks or months in one particular genre or text allows people to walk away saying, oh yeah, that was the point.
Right.
You know, that was the idea. It's just a very simple pedagogy. How do you teach things? Right?
So it's letting the text determine the shape of the liturgy.
That's right. Okay. That's right.
And obviously it's working here. You've got a great, group of people. I was with them last night, the executive council. Sincere, devoted people who love the Lord, love RD, love this church, and are looking for what's next. One of the things that I know you do, I walked in and I don't see a baptismal font, okay? And I'm looking, well, so where's that font? I see the table for the sacrament, but, okay, so this Sunday, you've got a very special thing, but it's not with a font.
So this Sunday is our baptism Sunday.
Right.
And we were doing so many baptisms that we had to start doing them quarterly instead of in response to need.
Right.
So 3-4 times a year, we bring in a hot tub.
You bring in a hot tub, right?
We rent a hot tub, we bring it in, we set it up, and we immerse people. That was actually out of necessity and out of need because we were seeing adults converted to Christ. And it's one thing to sprinkle infants, but for adults who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, who've never been baptized,
right,
they're converted to Christ, the imagery of being buried with Christ in his death and raised to new life, dead to sin, alive to righteousness, just to use biblical language, it's really profound.
It's got to be so powerful.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so talking to one fellow last night who talked about the conversion of his wife and how she, obviously won't give the details, but she is a new person. She really came to Christ, and over the last couple of years, as she has drunk deep from this well of grace, he said a lot of the bitterness and a lot of the edge of anxiety in her life was gone. It was really it was just an offhanded remark. It wasn't a testimony, but it was so touching for me to see. That happens a lot here. You're baptizing 9 adults. What is it, RD, that actually causes that change of heart from the inside, as you've seen it?
I think it's fundamentally only ever one thing. It's God's grace. And when you preach a gospel of grace, when you show people God's love for them in Jesus, that there is nothing that they can do to make God love them more, nothing that they can do to make God love them less. When you show people that the single most important thing in their life is not what they do for God, but what God has done for them in Jesus. It's that message of grace that changes lives from the inside out. This is a